Hello, hello everyone, and welcome to my show, Dear Lenka. You can tell me anything and everything, Abigail. I want to welcome my dear guest, Abigail. Hello.
Hi, everyone. It is so good to see you, Lenka. I am really excited to hop into what we have for you guys today. So, Lenka, where are we starting off?
We have a very special episode today, and I'm really excited about this because Abigail is my dear guest. And as you know, I bring the best of the best. So, Abigail Hayes is author, legacy coach, and teen creative writing mentor. And in my mind, I think I connect you with creative writing coach. That's how I call you, because I remember like what you do. And I just love this because I am actually planning to write my book, actually a couple of books. And something is still holding me back. So I think you're going to answer my questions. But before we start, do you want to tell us a little bit, Abigail, how did you get into writing? When did you start writing? And what kind of writing lights you up the most?
I would love to. So it's funny that you associate me with a creative writing coach. I mean, that's basically what I do. But the reason that I chose a couple of different titles is because I wanted to really stand out with what I do, because my focus has always been around what's that little extra piece that you can do that's going to really improve this thing that you're improve this thing that you're creating. What is it going to take to really rise above the rest? What is it going to take to really go deep with someone who's reading your book to allow them to experience this sensation that you've created? So I wanted a title, a job that really demonstrated that depth. So I hope that I do that justice. But yes, so what I do is I work with people who have stories that they really want to get out there, stories that they know are going to be incredibly impactful for the people that are going to be handling them and reading them and experiencing what they're sharing. And I show people how to go above and beyond to create that legacy, something that quite literally spans that test of time. I'm always drawn to people who, they wrote books back in the 1800s, or even just a little farther away from where we are now, but who had such an incredible impact on the communities that they wrote for, even if they weren't necessarily well liked at the time. Mm-hmm. But they still have those books. You still know who those people are. You still can see their stuff today because they made that kind of an impact. And so that's always been what I wanted to recreate for anybody who came my way. People who are willing to go that far will find those results. And so that's the focus of what I do. And the reason that I got into mentoring teens along the same preface was because I saw that same fire and that same light in the innocence of kids. And as a kid myself, who was very, very passionate about stories, I wanted to really go deep with nurturing that at a young age in any way that I could. And that's probably been one of my favorite experiences so far. I mean, I've absolutely loved working with so many incredible adults that have so many stories under their belt and so many things to share with the world. But I've also loved working with the fire that comes from being that youthful, creative, individual. And it's just been two incredible worlds that I've had the privilege of really being connected with. So yes, as far as what it is that you're creating, I'd love to hear a little bit more about the why behind what it is that you're wanting to put in your book. Like, why is this, what about this experience just lights you up? I can see you smiling. So tell me a bit about this. Like, what is going to be so incredible that people cannot miss out on this book?
Yeah, I just want to mention I love your passion and your fire, and you're just perfect for this show because it's helping people to get from stuck to fired up, so to find that passion, to rediscover the desire, and just go for it. So we are going to come on to my book as well, but before we do that, I just want to know a little bit about your childhood. Like, were you the kind of girl
Yes.
who was always fascinated about books, who loved reading, maybe going to libraries? What kind of child were you?
I was a very interesting child. The thing that was probably the most prominent about me was I did things my way. I was not I was not a group follower. I was the path paver. And that stood out as a toddler on. I frustrated a lot of preschool teachers. I really did. But now
Can relate to that.
Yes, that's become such an attribute to who I am that it's something I have to just look back and laugh at. It's just it was how I was. And yeah, what really started my crazy journey with stories hilariously was just a rinky-dink TV show that I didn't think quite as much of as I got older, but it was a I don't know if any of you guys are going to know this, but it was called Redwall, and it was based off of a book series, a teen book series from a British author. I can't remember where he was from. His name was Brian Jakes. And the show was a very, very watered down version of the books. Obviously, it was for a very young audience. I think I saw that when I was about 2. But it was from then on that I really began to see the adventure in many things in life. I began to constantly be in that space of creation, like just constantly asking, okay, how could this be different? How could this be even more? What if this happened? And what if it was like this? And what if it was like that? And so
Yeah.
I just began to see that in everyday things. And I would add them to this world that was inside my head. And then when I really started to learn how to like actually write, I messed with stories a little bit. I mean, I'm not going to go into detail because they were garbage, but I hit about 12 and I discovered the beauty that was my library, my local library. And I found that I was very interestingly judgmental of some of the quality of writing. I mean this in the best way, but I found myself really being drawn to what was ahead of me, and above my grade and whatever, to as opposed to what was more for my age. Like there were plenty of books. There was no shortage of books that were for my age and above, but I naturally found myself going to what challenged me and what really pushed me, what gave me more of an experience as opposed to what was supposed to be safe for my age. So I started reading those big, thick Star Wars books when I was around that age. And it just kind of took off from there. I found a very interesting balance of love for kind of a mix between young adult and adult fiction. I think that it's funny that they're 2 drastically different concepts, but they actually can mix at a point where they can both be written very, very well. And I became fascinated with what makes good writing, what created that experience for me, what allowed me to continue to learn and just gather more information. And so it was there that I really started to really get intense about talking about stories. I've annoyed my family on many occasions. So if you have something that you're passionate about and your family just is kind of tired of hearing you, don't worry, we're all like this.
Yeah.
There's always, we're going to have that thing that we are extremely passionate about, and it is for your benefit. Don't worry. But yeah, I really, I became fascinated with what makes good writing, what creates that upper tier experience for this book that you're diving into. And that translated to movies, that translated to video games, to comic books, to anything even remotely with a story. And I've just been fascinated with that ever since. And so being able to be in a spot where I am now, where I'm communicating that with other people and showing them how to communicate that, has become one of the biggest joys of my life.
I love that. And I could listen to you like all evening. You must be so good at storytelling as well. And yeah, I mean, I was always very curious as a child, and I loved books. I always had lots of books like at home. And I remember once when I was, I don't know, 7, I was like, after my school, I went to wait for my mom for like an hour until she finished work. So I would wait outside of her work and take her straight into the bookshop, which was nearby. And I would tell her, please, can you buy me this encyclopedia? And and it was always like it repeated, you know? So I was always fascinated by books and by reading. Even I could read before going to school. So I really loved that. What I was going to say is that I've developed, you know what, when I was at school and we had these classes where we had to write, yeah, like creative writing, like we had to write essays and I don't know, poems and this. I always heard my mom saying, I don't know how to write. I can't write, like do it yourself. I was like, okay. So I developed in my head that writing is very hard and I can't do it alone, or I don't know what else. But in fact, when I started writing, I always got really nice feedback. The teachers were always really happy. And when I was traveling around Asia, which is my book gonna be about, when I was traveling around, I remember I was creating these posts, and it was just sometimes I was just like sitting somewhere. I took this picture and then I wrote something from life. So it was not about the picture, it was something about life, and it was just it had a really really nice influence on people. So my idea was when I reached 100 of these posts, I was gonna print them and like create a book. But the other book that I'm like working on, which is gonna be about my travels, and where I might need your help, is that I traveled not by intention, but I traveled 500 days around Asia. I counted it at the end. I had no idea, and I want to write about this, but of course I'm not going to write about all 500 days. I'm going to write about my adventures. So I don't really know what I would call the book. Like, where do you go with creating the title?
Oh, this is such a fun topic. So first and foremost, I wanted to touch back on something that you said just a little bit ago, as far as the storytelling. And what I have come to love about storytelling in general is that there's no limiting parameters on anything that you're wanting to go deep with. I mean, the best fiction and nonfiction books alike have the deepest storytelling, the most connective, relatable storytelling. So if this is something that you can master, then that's something that you can use literally anywhere. And it's amazing because it translates to being able to speak, to be able to communicate with loved ones, to be able to share your vision with people, even if you're just talking to them on the street or in the grocery store. And it's something that is such a valuable skill to be able to communicate in this way, that it's become something that I've been so fascinated by. And I love sharing this with people. So the fact that you were noticing this at an early age is fantastic. And on that note, if you discover this later in life, that's okay. There's no age limit to anything even remotely around this area that you want to do. And I speak to that very, very personally. After starting at 2
Yeah.
and being only 22 now, and still being able to communicate this way with my clients, with the people that I work with, to be able to share this in live events. And I really want to impress that home. There really is no age limit. There's no debilitating factor that's really here to keep you stuck here besides yourself. So rest assured, there's always a way. And if you are willing to find it, then it will come to pass. So on that note, as far as titles, this is such a fun topic. What I love about titles is there's a decent right, there's a right answer sometimes, but it's totally up to you. It is completely up to what you feel works for the story. People may suggest a really great idea, but ultimately it is totally up to you. And I love that because this is an experience that comes directly from you. This is an emotional experience that comes directly from you. So as far as your book, Lenka, especially with your, let's take your 500 days of travel. Mm-hmm. One really simple title you could do is, 500 days to a result that you got at the end of those days. This profound thing that you got at the end of that time or during that time is always a really great thing to have in your title, especially in your blurb, which is just the short premise on the back. But the big thing about your title is that it really gets to be around around this really important piece of your story. Those are often the most fascinating titles to me. So even if let's say a fiction book has a really obscure title, it doesn't seem to have anything to do with the book itself, especially when you compare it to the blurb. It's after reading that book that you can discover where that piece actually fits in. Like, let's say that the title has something to do with this object that's in the book, but the blurb on the back has a lot to do with the journey of the characters. Well, throughout the story, you're going to see where that object has actual meaning, and what it often has is a deeper meaning that can be expressed just from the cover. It's why you read the book anyway. You don't judge it by its cover. But
But
yeah,
it's
as far
important.
as exactly. And yeah, so as far as your book about your 500 days in Asia, what was probably the most gratifying thing about that experience? What did you tell me a bit about what you
Yes,
loved about being able to travel in India or
I
Asia,
get
excuse
it.
me,
Yes, that's a great question. I get this question a lot. Like, what did I learn? What was the biggest
because you
takeaway?
light up when you say it.
Yeah, you know what it is? I discovered humanity again. Like, I don't know how to put it in other words, but I've seen people being
Interesting.
humans, you know, like being caring, just total strangers, helping you out, making you happy, like keeping me company on any trips, like showing me the country and being proud of the country. And that's what I feel in the West we have forgotten. We are very like, I don't want to say extremists in a bad way, but we are like, okay, if
I
it's
understand what you mean.
let's say in Slovakia, like we are a very religious country, we are Catholics. So in our mind, to our church, only Catholics should go. But in Asia, they take you and they show you the temple, like this is, you know, this is my temple, this is my second home, and they're happy to show it to you, even though I'm not Hindu or Buddhist or I don't know what. So, and this comes with anything, you know, like I don't want to go into too much details, but we forgot how to be human. Sometimes we are just too robotic. We are like, we forgot how to have that connection from heart, you know? And that's something that's like, that's missing. That's what I know. And we are like a lot about materialistic views and just yeah, just not coming from gratitude, but coming from I want more, I need more, I must work harder. Do you know what I mean? So I really found
I do.
like it was my journey to discovering humanity again, I would say, in a way, and the beauty of like the connection with nature and just being free.
I hear you. So to just pause you real quick, what I heard was the simplicity, the authenticity, and the connection of being with people who saw that in life.
Mhm.
So one really easy title for your book could be 500 Days to Humanity, or any of those other words that I mentioned, quite literally. And that's something you could play with. There's again,
Just like
excuse me, there's no right or wrong answer for your title. I do want to impress that.
yeah.
And you really get to play around with this quite a bit. So what do you immediately hear when I said, like 500 Days to Humanity?
um
How,
what
how
struck
does that
me
how does
was
that make you feel?
so what I imagine if I saw this title would be something humanistic, like maybe philosophy, or I don't know why, like something. Yeah, I wouldn't. I like it for me, but I don't like it as in it's not giving it justice, because it's not just the humanity, it's also being present, like being in the living in the moment. You know, like I met people who just live for the day and they don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. They don't have money for tomorrow, so they have to wake up and go to work or three jobs. I don't know. So, but they're still grateful. They don't complain. I don't hear people complaining. So it could be definitely 500-day journey, because journey is connected to travels. 500 journey or travel back to, see, back to humanity is kind of makes sense to me. um
Okay, that's great.
something like this,
And
yeah.
even and here's the beautiful thing about what I do is that I don't have to provide you the exact answer that's going to make all your troubles go away. You get to discover this either way. And what happens when you kind of discover that for yourself is you see it differently as opposed to someone just giving you the answers. And so you've
Yes.
created an experience for yourself. I mean, I've unlocked the path essentially, but I love that you still get to light up when you discover that perfect title or that perfect arc in that story, or the right wording for this feeling or this moment in time. So it's just one of the beautiful things that I get to do.
I love
But
that. And
yeah.
I see now how you are coaching people into creating their own style, like creating their own words
Yes.
rather than giving them the words. So, and I might even drop the 500 days. I might even say my journey back to humanity or something like this, because then this book could be about all the moments I have experienced with the humanity. And then I could have the 500 days somewhere else where I would discover more the journey, you know, like the travels, the countries, the people, the cultures. So yeah, because I think it's really important to mention how just like the experiences of like feeling alive, you know. Do you sometimes feel like in our Western world, like we forget how to enjoy the moments, how to be alive, how to get off the phones, you know, just to be with people? I think it's just so important to
Very
bring it
much so.
to light. Yeah. And especially through
We've
storytelling,
lost a sense of, oh,
especially
go
through
ahead.
storytelling, like it brings it to light, you know, because it's not just like, okay, do this, but it's telling the story, you know, like this is how I was feeling, this is what I've experienced. Yeah. What were you saying?
It's a beautiful thing, because what you're creating is an experience for everyone who gets to read your book. But I think a lot of people forget you are the first one who gets to experience this. So you get to go through the troubles of, you know, what is difficult when it comes to writing this book, but you also get to experience the highs. And when I say highs, I mean really high highs, because especially for me, writing and being able to invest myself emotionally in a story creates something that nothing else in life does. And you're going to find this no matter what your passion is. It's that thing that gives you so much life that you cannot put it down if you tried. You literally cannot. So again, for me, this is creative writing, and it's writing in general, but storytelling specifically. So yeah, it's just a wonderful thing to recognize. But yeah, is there actually, to touch back on something you just said, as far as what I feel like we're missing here in, you know, here in my country, we do take a lot for granted. We take so much for granted, and it's more than just, you know, being privileged. Like that's such a label that's thrown around nowadays. It's just, it doesn't mean as much to me. But it's a different journey for each of us, and so we get to experience our lives, and I think people have kind of forgotten how to do that.
Yeah.
Again, for me, it's involved with really with the storytelling of it, but for someone else, it's going to look completely different. And so I don't like throwing around labels like that, but it's something that we get to kind of wake up to, kind of open our eyes to, because there's so much to life, no matter where you live, no matter who you are, no matter what age you are. And if you're willing to be open to those possibilities as far as how you get to live fully, you will find ways to do that. And it's not something we're very commonly taught, but it's absolutely there. So you get to go look for it. You get to hold out your hand and say, I want that. And or that I'm willing to do that, to get that experience, to live fully. And it sounds like that's at least aligned with what you do as far as just making life full, especially with this potential book. So I'm really excited to see how it turns out personally. But
yeah, thank you so much. And I love how you led me to this place, because it's giving me clarity as well. So thank you so much. I was going to ask you, what are the top 3 mistakes that people make when they're writing?
Thinking it needs to be perfect the first time. That's a big one.
Yes.
What I have seen many authors do, first-time authors, is they will try to get that perfect first draft or semi-perfect first draft, and that will kill your momentum faster than anybody's words, faster than anything. And the problem, and the reason why that is because you will discourage yourself faster than anyone else. You are the driving motivational force behind anything that you do. You are the final say in what you do for the day and what you put in your book. So if you are focused on making this the perfect first draft, guess what's probably not going to happen? And guess what's going to happen when you don't? I've seen people get past that, absolutely, but it's such a rare occurrence, especially for first-time authors. You don't get to a spot where you can write a semi-perfect first draft until you've written a few, and
Yeah.
the problem is that people don't even allow themselves to get there. So give yourself some grace because you have time, you have the opportunity, and again, it's there for you if you reach out your hand. So don't be obsessed with making this first draft. There's a process for a reason. I've seen some people do that because they are annoyed with the editing phase, where they don't get it, or there's pieces after that they don't really want to do, so they try and alter the first step in order to make those things easier. And there's absolutely ways to do that. The problem is that there's no one way to make that work across the board. So you may be stuck in a place of trying to figure out what really works for you. And that's, again, part of what I do, because there's no one way to write a book. There's no one way to do anything even remotely close to that, or anything in writing. And if you're willing to learn about yourself through the process of writing your book, then what's going to happen is you discover what really works for you. And if you are gracious with yourself, then you can find that a lot more easily. If you're willing to learn, you're going to find that a lot more easily. The second thing that I see a lot of people, this is probably the second biggest mistake, is that they'll publish, or they'll try to self-publish before the book is ready. And that can mean a number of different things, but one really big example off the top of my head is they will kind of try and do everything themselves and then just put it out there. And if you're not in it for the fame, or if you're not in it for the impact specifically, that if you're not in it just because you want people to read your book, that's one thing. Like, I've seen some people write a book specifically for their own family members. I don't see a problem with that. I don't think you need to spend thousands and thousands of dollars to figure out how to write a book. But if you're wanting more than that, then that's something you should consider. Because what happens is, I'll never forget this. I saw a lady's comment it was on Facebook the other day, and she mentioned that somebody posted asking who people went to for editors. And this lady said that she did the whole thing herself, the editing, the writing, the formatting, the everything. And my heart just sunk a little bit, because what you do when you take away the aspect of other people looking at your work before it's completed is you lose feedback. And feedback is something that is not your enemy. It is absolutely built to help you create something that goes above and beyond. So if that's something you're wanting, do not settle for this. And it's absolutely nothing against this lady. I don't know what her situation was. I simply said, I understand that that's easiest. I know that it's the cheapest version. I don't know what her situation was, but you lose so much when you close yourself off from receiving that feedback, or when you close yourself off from sharing that with other people. And I've seen a lot of authors do that, where they're just so scared to open up their book to anybody. Like, I think one really common excuse is they're worried that somebody's going to steal their ideas. First of all, I've never actually seen that happen. never seen that happen, especially since there's so many people who are out here writing stuff, and so many don't make it because they don't understand how to really get there. But yeah, it's okay. It's okay to open yourself up and receive that refinement that is going to make your book go above and beyond, your story that is worth telling. And so you get to really, again, hold out your hand and say, yes, I want this. Or, at least be open to the possibility that what they have to say might actually be really helpful. It might sting a little bit. It usually does. But what happens after is so worth it. It's not funny. And so when you hold yourself back to save yourself from the temporary pain, you lose the benefits that come after you've received that feedback, or after you've received that refinement. A friend of mine called it that the other day, and I absolutely loved it, because that's what it is. The third thing is honestly probably not being willing to go through the harder pieces. It kind of touches on the last point that I made. But I've seen so many people where they'll try to kind of cut corners here because it's easier, or because they don't really understand this piece, so apparently it's not important, or it's just one little thing. Surely it's okay. And in many cases, maybe it is. That depends on your situation. That depends on where it is that you're wanting to go. But again, if you're wanting to go here, you cannot settle for here, because you won't even hit here. It's the way that it was phrased to me a couple of weeks ago was, 100% is is honestly what you should continue to be aiming for. Because because if you aim for 90%, you're going to hit 80. And what that really spoke to me as far as the real message behind that was, we as humans, we really like cutting corners. But more specifically, we settle for less. We'll settle for the more comfortable state. And so if you're willing to go push past that comforting barrier, that barrier that's always been there, the what's comfortable and familiar to you, it's there's so much that can happen outside of that, but you have to be willing to say, I'm going to reach for that, as opposed to saying, okay, well, I'm going to stop just behind that, because again, you won't even hit that. And that's something that from what I've seen, has just been so, it's amazing what happens when people understand that and they go beyond that. The results are absolutely astounding.
Wow. I'm so glad that you mentioned it, because let's say the feedback that you were talking about is so important, and feedback is neutral. In the end of the day, it's there to help us get better. And I just want to like bust this myth, because nobody can steal our ideas, because we are so unique. Like if my exact words or your words are written by someone else, it doesn't mean that they are taking your idea. It's just not going to sound right, because we all express ourselves in a different way. So I just want to ask you, Abigail, did you publish any books, or did you help others publish their books?
I have been in the process of helping several people over the last 6 months or so push towards getting their books published. Wow. Mine is currently still in the works. There have been many complications this year, as I am currently looking for a mentor to really guide me in this area. So very true to my path paving behavior. As a kid, I've been able to take what I understand and really provide that once again for people who are wanting to create what I'm creating. So despite not, and this is something that I absolutely love as well. It's no matter, honestly, it doesn't matter what your passion is. If you understand a little bit more than the next person, you have the capacity to give that. And if you're willing to give that, crazy things start happening. There's so much that's involved around just that state of generosity, that it is absolutely worth it. And it's very similar to being willing to write your book before you have the whole thing figured out. If you're willing to give what you have before you have it all put together, then things will, again, they just kind of start falling in your lap, because that's the act of you saying that, you're willing to keep taking steps forward. You're willing to keep moving forward in order to keep giving to these people who are listening to you, who are excited to be where you are going, and who understand your vision. So I have come to love that I don't know everything. I have absolutely come to love that, because it's just become a very authentic piece of me. I am still learning. I'm still young, but I have grown so fast because I've been willing to reach out and say, okay, that's an experience that I get to have. I want that. I want it. Yeah. And there's so much around being willing to move forward when you don't have all the pieces figured out.
That is so beautiful. And like, it's so interesting when we want everything to be so perfect, but we are cutting corners still. So
yes,
it's great to have a mentor. It's great to have a coach. It's great to have someone to give feedback. So it's so valuable. Oops. It's so valuable and so true, because when something moves, it means it's true. I was going to ask you, Abigail, where can people find you? How can people reach out to you?
Absolutely. So I am on Facebook as my name. You can find me pretty easily. I'm also on Instagram. You can sorry, what?
Your name as in Abigail Hayes.
Yes. Again, yeah, you can find me on Facebook just as my name. And then I'm also on Instagram, and you can message me at any time. I love seeing what people are up to. So feel free to share everything. I love being able to just encourage people and step in little ways, even on social media, where you're kind of limited, because there's the filter of the algorithm. There's the filter of, just not knowing people in general, but I love getting in there and creating those connections that result in people doing extraordinary things. So let's connect.
So does your mentoring also include writing on social media? Because that's also creative writing, essentially.
Very much so. I mean, it's not something that I've actively promoted up till now, but it really does apply anyway. It's like what I was saying earlier, as far as understanding storytelling gives you the ability to write fiction, write nonfiction, create movie scripts, to speak on a public stage, to be able to write a post on social media. It's all connected. And that's, again, another, I don't know how often I've said this, but it's another thing that I've come to love.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just so versatile, because it's all centered around the art of communication. And yeah, once you really understand storytelling, you can absolutely use it anywhere, including social media.
Okay, perfect. And I just have the last question, which is, do people need to have something written before coming to you, or can they come with the idea like I have and approach you? And how does the
You absolutely can.
How does the first session look?
That's a great question. So, no, honestly, you can come as you are. I have had people come to me with absolutely a clean slate and a vision. I've had some people come to me with most of a first draft. And it really doesn't matter where you're coming from. And it's another thing that I love about what I do, is that people are all at different stages. And I love being able to be customizable to where you are at and help you figure things out as far as what's going to work for you, no matter what it is that you're working with. So I'm extremely flexible there, because that's part of the adventure for me. It's part of the puzzle solving that I get to work with. So yes, that's absolutely what sorry, I lost my whole train of thought. But yes, you can absolutely come to me with a clean slate. Yeah, so the first session really looks like us going deep with this thing that you're wanting to create, because you have got to understand this. You really, really have got to understand this, because this is your vision is what's going to propel you forward when things get hard. If you don't know where you're going, things are going to get muddled way faster, and it's going to hit you so much harder. So if you really understand that as a solid foundation, then you can do so much more quickly. And so that's what I emphasize with our first time together. Additionally, it's also for me, so that I know where you're going, and so that I can keep pushing you forward based on what I know and what I can see, to complement this thing that the pieces that you're already working with. So that's the bulk of what we do, besides really getting in there and starting off by creating some methods that you can really use, no matter what your schedule looks like, no matter what this idea is, no matter what kind of research you're going to have to dig into. We give you some direction so that you can keep taking steps forward. And that's honestly what our calls look like every week. It's just continual progress forward, which again, it's just one more thing that I absolutely love.
That's so great. I love that. Thank you so much, Abigail. And I love your surname, Hayes, because it reminds me of Hay House, the publishing house. So I love that.
I have had that mentioned to me before, but I didn't even think about it till somebody brought it up.
And my dream is to be published by Hay House. So it could be your house, who knows? Could be Hayes' house. Yeah. But what a great idea, right?
Some copyright issues there, but it's a possibility.
Yeah, it would be so beautiful to have your own like publishing house and the school of creative writing. Like, what an idea. I would love that. So Abigail, thank you. Yeah, go on.
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt at all, but it's funny that you mentioned that, because that is an element that I wanted to incorporate with my services, is the ability to publish the people that come through me, both for my adult audience and my teen audience. And I met a publisher through the first writing conference that I did, and she was absolutely just one of the neatest ladies I've ever had the privilege of talking to. But she was able to share some really simple things as far as what becoming a publisher could look like. Because what her company does is it's like a central hub for a lot of publishers. And so they can work with who they want. They're just affiliated with that company, if that makes sense. So that is something I'm looking into. So it's hilarious that you bring that up.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much, Abigail. I loved having you here. I know we could talk all day, all night. And so I'm going to bring you back again So we're going to see how your journey is progressing as well. And maybe you'll have your book to show us. Who knows? Before we go,
awesome.
I want to share this book. Because today I keep hearing this word grace, even you said it. And I am reading this book, Grace, which is just a book by Christine Friel McGrory. It's a powerful story about discovering your purpose and finding true happiness. And I picked it up in one of the, there was like a conference in Edinburgh. I was once just visiting the city, and we popped into, there was like festivals all over the city. And we popped into this key event. And I think she was running the event. So I bought this book, and it's really great. And I keep hearing this word grace. So I was like, yeah, it's, like the sign. That's what I should be reading. It's beautiful. So I'm just going to end this. And thank you so much again. Thank you everyone for watching. And if you are on the verge of writing or wanting to create your own book, then definitely get in touch with Abigail, and she'll sort you out and keep moving you forward until you have that book in your hands. So yeah, thank you so much, and I will see you again.
Absolutely. Goodbye, everyone. Thank you, Lenka, for hosting. You've been gracious as always.
Thank you.